What is up, YouTube? Jonny here again today, and we're going to be working on the FRS. Recently, I saw a video on TJHunt trying to fix his axles, or trying to swap them out with some higher horsepower ones, and it looked like he was having a little hard time to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and make this video because I recently broke mine, so it's going to help me, help you, and help him. So let's go ahead and do that. First thing you want to do is get yourself a pair of gloves, because it's about to get real messy. Now, let's go ahead and take off some nuts. Now take off your wheel. Alright guys, so now the next step is to go ahead and remove this big nut right here that's holding our axle. What you're gonna need is a hammer and either a chisel or a flathead screwdriver. If you haven't already pulled your e-brake, now is a good time to do so. So let's go ahead and do that. The nut has a little locking area, which you have to chisel out. So what you do is you put your flathead screwdriver like that, and then you smack it. That should bring it up enough just so we can go ahead and turn it. Because if not, you're gonna have a hard time trying to get this nut off. Next, you're gonna need to get yourself a 32mm socket, which is gonna fit in here. What you're gonna need to do is either get a breaker bar if you don't have an air gun. In this case, I have an air gun, and we're just gonna go ahead and remove it. There's the axle nut, really easy to remove. Next, we're gonna go ahead and remove our brake lines and our speed sensor. So let's go ahead and do that. You're gonna need a 12mm socket to remove the brake line. Next, you're gonna need a 10mm socket to remove our speed sensor bracket. This one I'm gonna go ahead and use a wrench. Alright, now we're gonna remove the upper control arm. We're gonna be using a 17mm socket and a 17mm wrench to hold the back end of it. Let's go ahead and do that. Next, we're gonna go ahead and remove the lower control arm. On mine, they're an 18mm and a 19mm, but on a stock FRS, they will be 17mm. Let's go ahead and remove it. The bolt on this is a little stuck, so I'm gonna go ahead and just push it out. Now we're gonna go ahead and remove the trailing arm, which is this one directly above me. You're gonna need a 17mm socket and a wrench again to be able to remove that. Okay, now that we have it all loose, the only thing that should be holding on your hub assembly is your e-brake cable, your brake line, and your tow arm. So with that, we're gonna go ahead and remove the axle from the hub. So what you want to do is go ahead and knock it out. So what you need to do is go ahead and hammer out the axle from your hub. So after you're done hammering in the axle, sometimes it doesn't go all the way through, so you're gonna need to help it. Obviously your hammer's not gonna fit any longer, so you're gonna need either a chisel or a flathead screwdriver, whatever you have available. I recommend if you get a chisel because sometimes the plastics can break. But let's go ahead and get that axle out. Now you should just be able to pull it off. Okay, so now, or even before that, you don't really want your hub to be dangling on your brake lines. So what I'm gonna do is I just got some random wire to be able to hang it on the wire. That way there's not a lot of tension on your brake lines because it can rip them, and we don't want that. Okay, now that our brake lines aren't being stretched out or over pressured, we can continue. What you're gonna need now is a pry bar. So the pry bar is gonna be to remove the axle from your diff. This is probably one of the things that people have the most trouble with, and it's honestly one of the easiest if you have a pry bar. If you don't, it is really difficult. So let me show you guys how to take off the axle now. Alright guys, now that you have your axle out, you can go ahead and replace it with the new one. So either you bought some brand new or you bought some used. I'm gonna go ahead and rebuild this one actually. So at the dealership, these run you about $250 to $300 depending on the place that you're at. If you want to get upgraded ones for more power, they'll run you anywhere from $600 to $1,000 depending on how much horsepower ratings they're gonna get. Or you can get a used one. I've seen used ones around for like 90, 100 bucks. But now I'm gonna show you guys how to put it back on, just because sometimes it can get a little bit difficult to put this side in to the diff. So let me show you guys how I do that. And I also recommend putting some grease on the tip of the CV axle that's gonna go into the diff, just so it helps you go ahead and slide it in. It just needs one strong hit. There it is. Okay, so with that one hammer hit, we got it to go exactly where it has to be. In case you're not sure where it was, just go ahead and look at the opposite side and it'll show you how far in it needs to go. So that's how you get that CV axle onto the diff. That was the most difficult part of actually getting the CV axle back onto the car. You might have to go ahead and push the hub on the CV axle a little bit hard just to get it to slide in. Or you can also grease it up just to help it slide in a little bit better. Now all you really have to do is reverse order. So put everything back the way you took it off and you should be good to go. Make sure there's no extra or missing bolts or nuts and stuff like that. You want to make sure that everything was put back properly. Alright guys, it has been 3 days since this video was supposed to end. Unfortunately, the axle that was repaired, all they really did was replace the boots, because technically they don't have the parts because they are too new for the FRS axles. So I ended up testing it and snapped the axle, and this is what we got. The ring that's inside the inner part of the CV axle just completely snapped and the car was immobilized. So what I ended up doing is the next day, I called LKQ, asked them for an axle. They said that they had one, and I told them to ship it to me. It got here in 2 days. So as soon as it got here, I just went ahead and installed it. Removing the axle and installing it took me about 20 minutes. So it was a quick process once you already know what you're doing. So I hope that this video helped you guys to change your axles in case you're either repairing or upgrading. And as always, you guys have a great day.